Hello and welcome to Paradox, Untold Stories from Athletic Directors with Dr. Danielle Lapointe and Dr. Dustin Smith. We have some crazy and unique stories for you, which are made possible by our sponsor, Wall of Fame. At the Wall of Fame, our mission is to bring your school's legacy to life. We transform school tributes to make it easier than ever to celebrate your whole community, showcasing your school's diverse history, proudest moments, and top role models. We understand that the true value of our Wall of Fame is in your content. Whether you are starting a new tribute or adding to an existing one, we give you all the resources you need to build an interactive experience and take your content to the next level. Speaking of next level, let's check in to see what Danielle and Dustin have for us today.
Hi, everyone. We are excited to have John Woods with us today. How are you doing today, John?
I am fantastic, Danielle. Thank you.
We are very excited to have you here. We know it is the start of the summer, so we have some happy ADs on this call because you get a little break, you get a little refresher. So as school is now letting out across the country, but we know how Dustin is. Dustin's always living the dream. So how are you doing over there, Dustin? Now that's
Man,
summertime.
I couldn't be any better. If I was any better, I'd be twins, and one of me is way too many. So
Oh my gosh.
we'll just roll with I'm doing great today, and I'm excited because I got introduced to John really last week.
Mhm.
John did a pilot course, and he's an author of a course and a faculty member of a course that's going to get rolled out hopefully very soon through the NIAAA and loved John's energy, loved his passion for our profession, loved his passion for culture and trying to create a championship culture, not just winning, but what that really looks like from a staff perspective. What's that look like for student athletes, the expectations placed on them. So that's a little teaser for the class that will be launched at some point. And so I took a moment in that class and I just shot him a message, said, "Hey, John, I'd love to have you on our podcast. Love to see if you'd be interested in being a guest." And his response was, "I'm all in." I described it. I said, "We like to laugh. We like to have some fun." And his response to me was, "My wife says that's all I do is laugh." So he sounded like a perfect candidate for this. And so I got to exchange some text messages with him since then and really have gotten to learn a lot about John, whether he knows it or not. Talked to somebody that he spent some time with, and Becky Moran, that has some Illinois connections, and
Mhm.
got to visit with her a little bit on Friday, and got some inside information on John.
Uh-oh.
There's not any that he didn't volunteer, but what I really love about John, and I said it just a moment ago, his passion for a profession is through the roof, and he's been really integral in the part of promoting the athletic director position in the state of Illinois. Um, he's served in a variety of roles for their AD association. He's been, as most states have it, president elect, and then the president, then the past president. But he's currently serving as their treasurer, so he's the money man. He gets to hang on to the purse and make sure people are spending money like they should. But what I really love about John, and I've said it numerous times already, his passion is second to none. He's he brought it through in his portion of teaching the class, and just his knowledge base is extensive. He spent 16 years in Champaign as an AD at Champaign Central High School. He spent the last 6 at Libertyville High School, and we'll talk about where Libertyville is here in a moment. But
Mhm.
John, I can go on and on about your accolades. I got a list printed out of all the things that I can say. But my question that I like to ask, number one, is tell us who John Woods is outside of being an AD. I know that's hard to do, but tell us what makes up what's the resume not tell me about who John Woods really is.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Dustin, and I think it is hard to do to have a life outside of the role that we fill. And I think for many years, you mentioned I was an AD in Champaign for 16 years. I think for many years, my identity got wrapped up in what I did rather than who I am. And as I've matured and learned and grown as a leader, I've also grown and matured as a husband to the most wonderful woman, my wife Nikki, and she's just an incredible. She is my rock, my best friend, my support system, and she's the one that I love to laugh with every single day. And then I'm also a father to two amazing children. Our son Peyton is 26, and he is spreading his wings out on his own. Graduated from Michigan State. He was an athlete there. He swam for the Spartans, and then ended up graduating with a master's degree in marketing research. And he is currently employed, but moving to Newport Beach, California, in about 6 weeks. So we're going to get him around here for a couple more weeks, and then he's heading out. So excited for him. And then our daughter Kendall is 23, soon to be 24. She's a first grade teacher at a school just about 20 miles south of here, and I'll tell you, she goes to work every day with a smile on her face. And what's most incredible is that she also comes home every day with that same smile on her face because of the impact, not only that she has on her kids, but also the impact that they have on her life. Super, super cool. In my spare time, love to travel with my wife and our kids. We're taking 2 trips this summer, going to Florida for a week, and then, of course, going to California for a week with our son. Love to work out, love to golf, love to read. And I like to work in the yard a little bit, Dustin, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I mean, you said 3 times in 3 days you've been mowing just to keep up with all the rain. That's getting it done, right? If you got to do it 3 times in a day, either that or you don't cut it very low.
Both. I don't cut it very low. There's a competition in my neighborhood, and nobody else knows about the competition except me. I strive to make sure that I've got the best lawn on the block. And, I mentioned it last Monday, Dustin. Think about all the things necessary to have the best lawn on the block. You got to take care of it every single day. You got to water it. You got to have sun. You've got to fuel it or fertilize it. You've got to make sure that you're doing all the things to make sure that you got that beautiful yard every single day.
I had a coach at my previous school that he would time himself mowing his yard, and that was his competition because he wanted to be better each time. So he would time himself and then try to beat it the next time. Are you that competitive that you do that? I know you say it's the only competition that you're aware of, or you're the only one who's aware of the competition. Do you do stuff like that too?
It is. Yes, I do turn on my watch to get my steps, to get my mileage. And I want to know exactly how many steps I'm getting because I do measure everything as it relates to my physical fitness. And mowing the lawn is just one of them. I don't try to do it faster than I did before. I just try to do it better every single time.
So do you practice golf in your yard? I mean, being a golfer and knowing the damage that happens to a golf course, do you repair a divot or do you not? Is that a holy ground that you can't practice golf out there?
I don't. However, when my son is in transition, so he was home with us after he graduated during COVID, and he is home with us right now. And I saw my 8-iron in the garage, and it had a little bit of dirt on the toe. And I thought, oh man, the first time I saw him swinging a club in the yard, had to take a deep breath and just remember, I only get a little bit of time remaining with that boy, and don't want it to be on bad terms. The grass will grow back. He may not. So when he heads out to Newport Beach, I want him to have fond memories of hitting balls in the yard and enjoying his time at home. So more important things than him tearing up the grass.
Right. And speaking of more important things, you have done a variety of things in your past as far as getting to the AD chair. You've coached almost every sport imaginable. You talked about having 31 sports there at Libertyville, and we'll talk about where that is exactly here in a moment. But also something that stuck out to me is you were a special education teacher.
Yes.
And just the gift of a person to be able to do that, one, but two, to balance that with coaching and coaching the variety of sports that you've coached, from volleyball to basketball to track and field. You've covered several sports, but also the special niche that it takes to be a special education instructor. teacher to love on kids, really that really need to be loved on. So, how long has it been since you've been in the classroom as a special education teacher?
Man, Dustin, it's so I became AD in Champaign in 2002. And at the time, the AD position was, we had 21 sports in Champaign, so not as many levels. I think we had 43 teams, 21 varsity sports, which means there was only a varsity team for several of our sports. Um, I have not, and then the position transition from 2002, 2003 to the 2008, 2009 school year, it became administrative. On September, I think 24th of 2008, following the board meeting the night before, I was informed by my principal that the AD position is now administrative. I'm being pulled out of the classroom. And I was still coaching at the time too. And he actually, I asked him, I said, do I still get to coach?
Mhm.
And he said, well, you can. You just can't be the AD if you continue to coach. So you can choose. You can either go back to the classroom full time and coach, or you can be an administrator. And because all the while I had been teaching and coaching as AD at Champaign High School. So I had a choice, which is great. It's always good to have choices. And at that time, I chose to go the administrative route and resign as assistant basketball coach, and then of course transition from the classroom. And we were in school, mind you. We'd been in school for 5 or 6 weeks.
So somebody had to fill your role as the teacher.
Yep. Yeah. So I have not been in the classroom as the teacher since September of 2008.
Man, you got great recall there to know that. I mean, I know some of us would on this call would struggle trying to figure out what we had for breakfast, let alone what happened in September of 2008.
Yeah,
Dustin,
the
don't talk. You don't
retrieval
have to be so hard.
process.
You don't have to be so hard on yourself, Dustin.
I didn't throw any point any fingers. I just simply said some of us on this call, just blanketed all of us. So any guilt taken is on your own. But let's talk about Champaign, and that's a large town, obviously, in Illinois. But you're at Libertyville now. Let's talk about where Libertyville is. Paint on a map for our people that may be geographically challenged, or our co-hosts that may be in Florida and not know where Libertyville is. Could you go ahead and paint that on a map for us?
Yeah, so if you look at a map, Chicago obviously is in the northeastern part of the state, wraps around Lake Michigan there. And then Libertyville is just to the north and to the west of Chicago. So I'm about 7 miles west of Lake Michigan, 15 miles south of the Wisconsin border.
I
So
hear
are
cold.
you
Yes. Oh, and it was a new level of cold coming up here. They talk about like lake effect and all this and that, and I was like, cold is cold. It's cold. Cold up here is colder, and it gets colder earlier, and it stays colder longer. Maybe 2, 3, up to 4 weeks. Yeah, it's different.
and lake effect snow is a real thing.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't think we get much of it, although I will say some of the good snowstorms we've had here has exceeded a foot or so of snow, and I think that's happened 3 of the 6 years I've been up here.
Well,
We've had 50 sub-zero temperatures with wind chills of 50 below.
see, and Danielle here's cold if it's below 60. She is cold below 60.
Yeah, it is cold. We've had
It's a
days
different
where,
level of cold.
ooh,
It is. It is. Oh,
yep.
And the wind.
Oh man,
Not to mention the wind.
because you're
cuts
making
right
me
through.
chilly. Ugh.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of wind. Of course, Chicago's known as the Windy City anyway, but it's just
It's
coming off
legit.
the lake. I mean, it's just a whole different level. It's it's like John on a different level than everybody else. It just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's do this, John. We like to have a conversation. We like to have some fun. You love to have some fun. And I was kidding with you over the weekend about some humdingers, what we call them as far as stories. Just those stories. I know that you've been an AD for a lengthy period of time. And in that time, you've had to have some stories that are just like,
Mhm.
did that really just happen? Or this really made me laugh now that I look back on it. Um, and we just leave it open to you to just kind of run with that how you want to. So I know you and your passion. I know that you're going to run with this, and I'm just handing you the baton. And then I will just warn you that as you tell a story, there may be times we may interrupt that and just ask a question, just for some clarification, just to maybe just to
To laugh.
process it in our own mind, and then also to laugh, probably more than anything. So I'm handing you the baton. You were a track and field coach, so you know with the relay, we hand you the baton and give you the chance to take off running with it and start with whatever humdinger you want to start with.
Well, Dustin, I tell you, gosh, when I was thinking about this, there was just so many things going through my head, and I was trying to narrow it down to just a couple. But I can tell you this: my first year as AD, first of all, I had no idea what I was doing, none, and we were hosting our crosstown rival in varsity football. So I started July 1 of 2002. We're hosting our crosstown rival, and we share a varsity football field, but it's on their campus. So 2 miles across town at Champaign Central, our school, we didn't have any outdoor athletic facilities on campus. None. And we only had two gyms.
It's always a joy right there when you have no outdoor athletic facilities.
Right.
Starting strong.
We were all over town. And our varsity football field, our track, our pool, our tennis courts were all over at our sister school. And so we would have to pack up, ride the bus to our home games. I would have to get there at like 3 p.m. to start setting up the stadium. And I thought I had everything in place, all the people in place. And at halftime, our sound system was kind of bootleg back then. And so I'd bring these 2 portable speakers, set them up on the track. I'd plug in, I don't know, maybe a dual cassette tape recorder or something, whatever we used back then. And I had our dance music queued up at halftime, ready to go. So here I am, nervous as heck that something might happen to the music, and worried what if something cuts out, and all the things that can go through your head as an AD. Press play, the kids are dancing, performing right there at the 50-yard line on the field. And I'm watching, and I see this streak from the left side of the field as I'm looking at the field, and that would come from the south end of the field, from the end zone. And I'm like, what the heck? What is that? And it's like this red figure streaking, sprinting right down the center of the field from south to north. And I'm like, is this real? And is this individual running towards our dance team? So my first thought was to protect our kids. And
so it was a human. So now you've identified it as a human.
Yes.
Okay.
I had realized this is a human running across, dressed in all red. And it wasn't like our sister school. They were navy blue and Columbia blue. We're maroon and white. Nobody had red. So I was a little confused, a little worried about the safety of our children. So I'm young. I'm like 31 years old. I go out on a dead sprint, sprinting, and I'm going to meet this individual before they could ever get to our dance team. Well, I get there, and as I'm running, I'm like, this individual is naked, no clothes on, painted head to toe in red body paint or whatever. And so as I'm right there, I got an opportunity to like take this individual down. I got an opportunity to push. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So just try to visualize. He's sprinting, and as I get there, all the things that are going through my mind, like, what am I going to do? The answer was, I'm just going to run alongside him. We're running down to the north end. This individual is looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm just trying to who is this kid? Can I get a description?
Wait. So it was a guy. It was a boy.
It was a boy. Yes. And I could tell that. And which is why hands-free zone. So I'm running, and we get to the end of the track. The kid steps over the fence that aligns the perimeter of the track. But then the challenge was this 6, 7, 8 foot fence that secured the entire facility. Kid gets to the fence.
No.
Kids don't know how to climb fences like they used to.
No. No.
his whole plan failed because he couldn't get over the fence. So I'm just standing there. Police come and it got complicated, because there wasn't anything to protect the child from the exposure, and the whole thing was complicated. Long story short, the kid was later identified, and then the consequence was a consequence. Fortunately, it wasn't our child at our school. Here's the crazy thing. So there's
Oh, that wasn't good
Here's
enough.
the
That
crazy
wasn't good enough. There's more.
Oh yeah, no. So as an AD, like I'm trying to think, like if this ever happens again, what do I do? And I learned, like, number one, I don't want to be the first one on the scene. Like I want to walk to the scene rather than sprint to the scene. Fast forward, I think it was about 9 years, and our crosstown, our sister school, had just hired a new AD, young guy, full of energy. And he and I are standing at halftime on the track, just talking, making sure everything is going okay. And here it comes. Same thing, this time all pink, running from the south end to the north end. He takes off on a dead sprint. I'm like, Tony, wait. And he found out that kids can't climb fences as well as they used to back in the days also. And those kids, yeah. But what I also learned, like if you are going to do something mischievous, you don't want to be the slowest one in the group. And there were 3 of them that day, and the slowest one ended up getting caught, and of course sang like a canary, and it's really bizarre behavior. I couldn't imagine doing that. But I guess in this profession, there are some things that you can plan and prepare for, and there are some you cannot.
That is the whole premise of our podcast: is the things
control what you control.
So I want to go back. I want to go
so
back
many
to
questions.
the first thing you said about you said bootlegged sound system.
Yes.
We call that
That's
here
where you're
Southern
at.
Ingenuity.
That's where you want to go right now.
That's where I want to start. I didn't
things.
say that's where I want to go. That's where I want to start. We call it Southern Ingenuity down here. We just connect some things together and make some things happen. Nobody really knows. Kids get to perform. They get to do their thing. Mm-hmm. It was a tape deck at the time?
I am almost positive it was a tape deck.
And I think back to being an AD at that time, and you think about all the things that can go wrong now, even with a CD skipping or, an MP3, you don't have your aux cord plugged in right or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just think about being an AD. Danielle, you were probably like 3 when this happened in like 2000. So just imagine the stress that's involved with the sound system that was created, we'll say. Yes. We were just hodgepodging those things together. Not only the sound system, but the tape deck, and hoping that the song was queued up correctly. And that you put the tape in on the correct side. Daniel, you probably never dealt with a tape, a cassette
the pinky
tape.
And the pencils, and I know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking that, and that's of your concern. You're trying to make sure that this is played right, that sound's actually coming out of the speakers, that you've hooked everything up like it's supposed to, and then out of nowhere comes this. You said streak to begin with.
Yeah,
and red figure. Red figure is what he started with.
Right, a red figure.
A red figure.
And
I don't know why you ran next to him. I need more on that. Like that was your thought process at the moment. I'm gonna stay with them.
Well, my first was remember to like protect the children, and if this individual was coming at the kids, and I was gonna wipe out the individual. And and as I'm running, I'm going through all these things. Like if I take it, and if this happens to be a kid, then what happens legally? Like all these things, which is why I just ended up running alongside, because I didn't want to put my hands on anybody.
Did you talk? Did you talk to him? Where you're like, "Hey, what are you doing, buddy?" Like,
actually, that was like the first thing that came out of my mouth. What are you doing? I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question.
Right. You kind of know that answer.
Isn't it obvious what I'm doing? Yeah, it was, like I said, much younger, and,
that is I feel like out of all of the streaker stories we have had, everyone has come to the same conclusion. And this is very valuable for all of our listeners who have yet to experience the streaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone's like, I'm not running after them again.
No.
It's every single person's like, you're like, I'm not going to be the first person. I'm not going. That is everybody's
Yeah, because if you go to
immediate
the ground,
reaction.
like, what happens?
Yeah.
It just gets complicated.
Yeah, you can't ID the kid because he's not carrying any form of identification whatsoever.
And this was
we had a guy on this show actually, John, that he was standing on the sideline next to his principal.
Mm-hmm.
They had similar event, a streaker take off across the field, and his principal just looked at him and said, "Go."
Nudged him.
And so said, "Go." So he takes off running after the kid. Well, the PA guy decides to do play-by-play to the whole stadium while he's trying to chase this guy down. So I preface that by saying, was there any commentary with you in
No,
this
the bootleg sound system saved him, I feel like.
Well, we did have do you remember the show MASH?
I do.
So our speakers were I think they were taken from the set of MASH for the stadium. So that just gives you an idea of how bad they were. And we wanted to make sure that our dance team had at least a quality sound while they're performing. That included some bass and not just the tweeter sound from the speakers. And so that was the reason for the bootleg sound system. We got those big portable speakers, set them up on a tripod, and then you got to plug in the thing to make the sound work. There was no play-by-play. Most likely because our announcer was probably down at the concession stand getting, a little snack or something during the downtime after they introduced the dance team.
So was this, speaking of MASH, was the kid Corporal Klinger at all? Or was that, I mean, Klinger he was out there a little bit.
He was. Kids are going to be kids. And honestly, if that's the worst thing that a kid's going to do, then so be it. And hopefully they learned a valuable lesson and it wasn't just how to climb a fence.
Right. Well, the best part is you said you just saw the red form headed towards your team. And so instinct just kicked in. I'm going to go protect my kids.
Yes.
This could be a threat to my kids.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. So you get out there and then you said it was a male I could identify.
Yeah.
And so did you run laps around him? Like, did you try to protect him from the crowd seeing him? Or were you just running next to him and just saying, I'm just trying to get him off the field as quickly as possible?
It turned into like a 100-meter dash. Try to get him off the field as quickly as, and I think maybe there was a thought in his head that I can outrun this old guy. What he didn't realize, I used to be really, really fast, and I could beat him to the fence and then show him how to climb it. But I thought it was a great opportunity for me to watch him attempt to climb this fence. It was sad.
I want to go back
to
did
security get involved is the question I have. I mean, at what point did they? I mean, clearly you were the only one that was brave enough to run out there with him. But did security just meet you at the fence, or did they see his failed attempts at climbing the fence and decide, all right, we're going to go save John now and make sure that we'll
could have been both, I think. Let's see how fast John is. Let's see if he does anything. And the kid can't climb the fence, so now he's stuck. Let's go help.
And by stuck, you mean he couldn't climb the fence. He wasn't stuck on the fence. He was just not able to climb the fence.
He couldn't pull himself up and get his foot in. And I gotta believe
that's probably so good for you. That is probably so good for you and where you were standing. It's probably really good.
Yes.
So this is a football game.
Yeah.
Beginning of season, end of the season,
middle of the season.
Middle of the season. Okay. Let's go back to beginning.
And a rival school, Danielle. This wasn't I know,
but that's not where I'm going with this. It's cold. Mm-hmm. Streaking there is different than streaking in Florida. It is what, November? No, October?
No, it would have been probably early October.
Okay. So it's October. And it's cold.
Yep. Yeah, but probably not terribly cold because I know I was wearing shorts at night. So 60s maybe.
Mm,
Could
Which
have been
is
one of those
mm.
summer
That's
breezes.
that's cool to be naked. I guess he wasn't. He had paint on.
Yeah, paint
yeah,
No, is this full body paint? Like he just
head to toe,
redded him whole.
head to
head
toe.
to toe.
That's
Yeah, head to
And
toe.
neither school was red.
Neither school was red.
Can you find maroon body paint? Really? I mean, is that a thing?
Um, I mean, I got to believe that you can figure out a way to make it maroon.
I mean, you can make the colors, I'm sure.
Do better,
Fortunately,
streakers. Do better.
do better. Do
So
better.
what was your dance team doing at this time? I mean, did their performance halt? Did they keep going?
I don't
Do you
even
even
know
know?
if they knew it was happening.
So was
I
it
mean,
behind them then?
it was behind them. Yeah, and I
Oh.
came from probably I don't know the
You jacked up. You
south.
jacked up his path. That's what you did.
Yeah, I mean it was. I can see it like it was yesterday, and it's been 22 years. Oh
And
my
that's an image you still want.
yeah, no. Actually, the only part of it that I can actually see is the initial like streak, and then I think the rest of it you just get so jacked up on adrenaline that you're just locked in and focused on what you're trying to do. Which my original intent was to make sure that the children were safe that were on the field.
No, what you said, your children, you were going to wipe out the kid, is what you said. You were going to wipe out the streak, I think is what you
Wipe out
said.
is his exact words. Yeah.
Hey
Mhm.
man, safety first, right?
Right. So I'm thinking of,
Was it
I'll
a
think about
child?
Tony, and I'll talk about this in a minute. But you said 9 years later it happened again. It was like a repeat performance.
Yes.
Obviously not the same kid,
No.
but
No. Actually,
obviously
that
the
time there were
same.
three.
There were three of them. So
Three
was
three
four.
streakers at one time?
Yes.
Whoa, how did I miss that the first time?
Yeah, two of them got away. I told you the third one was the slowest.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. I completely. Whoa.
Yeah, and I watched the whole thing. I didn't go chasing anybody. We were the visiting team at the time. So the first time we were the home team. So when you're the visitor, you switch sidelines. So we're on the west side at this point, and he just takes off on an all out sprint, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened. I'm gonna walk.
it's funny that you
Yeah,
mentioned, you said, I think you said Tony. Was that the AD at the
yeah,
time? Yeah.
yep.
And this was Tony Miller out in Arizona. And when he had the play by play, he said when he got to the fence chasing the kid, he just grabbed an arm because he thought that may be the only thing. And then
No.
when he got the kid down from the fence, he told him to lay on his stomach.
I remember that.
So,
I kept him there.
so I thought that was brilliant at the time. Was that anywhere in your mindset with either? I mean, two of them got away, obviously. So you didn't catch those two until as you said, the kid sang like a canary. He was revealing all,
Oh
for
yeah.
lack of a better term. But did you have the thought process of making him lay down on the ground face down?
You know, I didn't. So the second one where there were three, two of them, like I said, got away. The third one Tony had, and their security team, their admin did a great job taking care of it. The first one was really the only one where I was on the scene, and by the time the kid quit climbing the fence and raised the white flag, security had arrived. So I didn't have to have him lay down and wait. He was sort of like escorted out, and there's only two ways in and two ways out there too, which means
I mean,
could have been a
the
line.
amount, the premeditation that went into yours is not like anything we've seen before on this podcast because full head to toe body paint takes a lot of preparation. Like you are determined to be naked that night. Like that's
Oh, it's
happening.
happening. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
happening.
That's not just like I think one of them was like $100 bet. Someone did it just randomly, didn't think about the consequences. Like your kid didn't do that, and so it was a student, but not your student that did it.
Correct.
I feel like that's common too. People don't really streak to their own schools. I feel like.
Well, and the irony is our stadium was over in their boundaries. So kid likely lived close by and just ran across the open field there to the neighborhood or from the neighborhood, and it was
No.
on.
Mm-mm.
So what all conversations happen? I mean, you said like, "What are you doing?" Obviously, it was a rhetorical question, but I mean, how much of the field were you covering, running next to the kid? And was there
I
any
bet
more
about
I have
conversation?
this image of you running next to the red figure, just
Oh
like
yeah, it
shoving it up.
happened. We went from about the 50 all the way through the north end zone, through the little landing area back there by the scoreboard, the flagpole, and then 8 lanes of track, and then the little 2.5 foot fence. He was able to step over that one, and so was I. And then the next one, there was probably 15 yards from that fence to the perimeter fence of the entire facility. And that's where I don't know if fatigue became a factor. I don't know if that was the kid just didn't know how to climb a fence. It's likely both,
Or
or
he was
realized like
scared.
I'm not
There's
good
no
enough.
protection whatsoever to climb the fence if something went wrong. I mean, there's a
No
lot
backup.
of it's cold. Don't forget that. Like, there's a lot of
Well, cold's relative. Cold in Florida, yes. Cold in Illinois, it was probably warm
It was
in
balmy.
Illinois.
balmy.
It was.
So my question is, what conversation did you have aside from what are you doing? I mean, did you have like, buddy, this isn't going to end well for you. Let's run
Oh,
right over here.
yeah, I'm sure that came out. Like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, what is your plan? And I don't remember him really ever speaking until he gave it up at the fence. Like, I got nothing. And at that point, fortunately, I didn't have to wash my hands, but I did wash my hands.
You had no red paint on you, is what you're saying.
No red paint on me. And it
No
was a
evidence.
valuable lesson.
For who? For who? Who was the value? We
Well,
always
for
like to
me,
talk
number
about
one.
the. I was gonna say we like to talk about the. You know what you learn from
Takeaways.
all the what you learn from all the takeaways, and I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways, and I'm still working on this today, is you have the event. So you may have heard the equation E plus R equals O. You
Yep.
have the event, you have your response, and then you have the outcome. The event you can't control, your response you do control, which could influence the outcome. So I think early in my career, and I might have learned it that night, is there's a difference between response and reaction. I think had I reacted the way I might have, um, maybe the day before, maybe years before, when I was much younger, it likely would have turned out to be a mess. But the fact that I was able to, as I got closer, like figure out a different response rather than a reaction, influenced the outcome. It was more favorable, I think, for everybody, especially me. It's like, yeah, all the stuff going on. While maybe if we would have ended up on the ground together, that could have gotten really complicated.
I feel like now with like cell phones being so prevalent everywhere that you're lucky that that wasn't a thing, right? We've all of the streaker stories we have heard have been like pre cell phone,
Mhm.
pre recording, so that's good.
It was definitely good. That probably would have been on TikTok and
Mm.
Snapchat and Instagram and MySpace. And MySpace was actually a thing back then.
Right.
Um, Twitter or X or
And you were
whatever.
in his space. I mean, he
I
was
was
he was just trying.
He was in John's space, is what was
trying to
going
make sure that there was no space invaders present at the game.
Wow. Yeah, that is. So what was the consequence? Do you end up knowing, like, was it the school? Was it the student for the school that like the field you were playing at?
Yeah, it was their student, and I'm
Okay.
sure that the student was issued a no trespass or cannot attend games for the rest of the school year,
Yeah.
and likely ticketed by the police
Yeah.
for indecent exposure or
He
something.
was lighter in the pocketbook for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and you just hope that folks learn from it.
but clearly they didn't, because 9 years later it happened again. So
Three of them. They three. They tripled it.
I did some foolish things in my lifetime as a kid growing up, but I don't think that ever was even an option.
Yeah,
Like,
No,
that's
that's
never
what we
registered
keep
in your
saying.
mind.
That's what we keep saying. We're like, what? Who would
like
do this?
imagine the three of us sitting around like, hey, I got a great idea. Surely one of you would be like, that's really not a
That's a
good
terrible
idea.
idea.
Yeah. Somebody's got to say no.
Don't do that. That's bad.
I think it
Yeah.
goes back to your statement earlier when you said you're glad you didn't tackle him because that would have been it would have complicated things. Like
Yes.
that probably would have been my response. John, we're really going to complicate things. If you decide this is a really good idea, that this gets complicated real quick.
You would have to
Yes.
stand around the game with red paint all over you for the rest of the game.
Oh,
But
man.
you know, I think about a commercial that's out right now, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like a guy that's in the office setting. He's just wearing a button-up shirt, and he forgot his pants, and it says something you've forgotten. And so he's like, "Man, it's a little drafty in here," and he's got this buddy standing next to him. And so he's like, "Oh, I know what I forgot. I forgot to tie my shoe." So he goes over to and picks up his leg and puts it on to tie his shoe. And the buddy sitting next to him just says, "Nope, not doing that." So he turned and walked away. And so I think I would have had to say, if that was an idea, I would have been like, "Nope, I'm out."
Nope.
That's a terrible idea. But he recruited two others.
Or imagine if you and I are standing there on the sidelines and I'm like, hey, Dustin, I got a great idea. Let's go chase this child. And you'd be like, nope.
I was gonna
You
say,
know, ironically, we've mentioned Tony Miller and his reaction to the streaker that happened in Arizona.
Yeah.
Becky Moran, I mentioned in the first part, she was our first guest on our podcast.
Yeah.
And we call her Three Socks Moran because one of her streaker stories was somebody wore 3 socks.
took him a minute too.
Not the body paint. I mean, this is a different level. But so I can't take credit for naming her 3 socks, but she said that this student wore 3 socks.
Hmm.
And one person on this podcast, it took a moment to register where that third sock may be located.
It was our first episode.
And so here's what I'm determining. This is an Illinois problem because she had 2 streakers that she talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Now John's got, well, I think I can go on
They don't
record
have
on
any-
3 and 4.
They start getting stir crazy up in these cold states. I don't know. They're coming up with all these ideas.
I just
my
love the
goodness.
fact that you ran beside him. I mean, your thought
yeah.
process happened at some point, just saying,
I'm gonna do
this
this
is
with
the
you,
best
buddy.
decision I can
We're
make.
gonna do this together.
I mean,
This is the
shirt
best
off.
decision I can make. Yeah.
Not
That
like
was-
stopping, not throwing your hands up, just
so what's the discussion with your administrators at that point? Like after that, after he's been taken away, after he's been covered, whatever you want to call it, what was the discussion after? I mean, because you had a second half to go. So what was the discussion like with your personnel? I mean, did you walk over to people and was anybody else saying, why'd you run with him? Why didn't you do this? Did they?
Oh, I'm sure the jokes just flew for the remainder of the school
Yeah.
year, probably.
Yeah, they did. But you know, as you reflect, it's a lot easier when you get away from the moment and you reflect. And I think that's why 9 years later, I was able to respond the way I did. And that's like, I'm not chasing. Like, let's just let it play out and let our security folks do their thing. And we don't chase, given those circumstances. And that was really the most valuable lesson for me, because I obviously first year AD, never been presented with a situation like this. And you just got to kind of work through it and grow from it. And it's a valuable lesson on many different levels, for sure.
Now, John, I don't know that I would have ever thought about, I'm just going to run next to him. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know that I would have ever gotten to that point of saying, this is the best idea to run right next to him. I may have just stood there and just said, as long as you don't get around my kids.
Yeah, that's a great point. But at least if I was next to him, I could definitely influence the direction that the individual was going. And ultimately, my original intent was to make sure that our kids were protected, that were performing on the field. And I figured as long as I was at least in close proximity, that I could influence the direction that child kept or was going to go, and make sure that stayed away from the teams that were going to be coming out from halftime and then from the kids that were on the field.
Did you think at any point people might have thought this is part of the show? Like this is
Maybe
part of the
so.
performance?
Yeah, here goes the second part of the halftime show.
Well, when you were first telling it, I didn't know the story prior. So when you were first telling it, I thought this was going to go like there was two ways, right? One of two ways. First way was either a streaker, or I thought maybe it was like an act part of the dancers because it was a red figure. You left it open, right? I thought
Well,
maybe
yes,
it was
totally.
part of the
'Cause I
dance team.
remember
Maybe.
seeing it and then going to press and play. I was like, I don't remember this in watching them practice. And so it took me, like, I'm serious. So the kid ran probably 60, because if you include the end zone,
Before you
then the
realized, yeah.
yeah, like, oh, this is not a part of the thing. And that's when I made the decision to go and at least make sure they were safe while they performed what they should have been performing and performed very well.
Yeah, that is. I have never had a streaker, but if I ever do, I now know without a doubt I will not chase them.
No chasing. Yeah.
Yeah,
No chase.
that's the best advice.
Yeah.
Chase them.
I mean, like, imagine if I pull a hamstring or something now and like it just, yeah, it's
Chasing a
just,
streaker. Oh man, you'd never live that down.
you never live it down. And ultimately, some now with phones and everything. And actually, there was another situation. I can't remember. We were same school. And I remember the AD from the school and I were talking about, we had heard rumblings of this is going to happen. And you see cell phones come out from the one student section. And lo and behold, this was at a basketball game. And lo and behold, here comes their kid that does whatever, fully clothed, but interrupts the halftime performance by what was their dance team in their gym. And tries to incite our students and then heads out. And like, when you start to see those cell phones come out now, like something
You're like,
is,
where is it? Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, where is it? And then you can get in position to do what you
Yeah.
needed.
Oh, I enjoyed
I'm
this
trying to
story.
process, John.
I did.
I told you humdingers, and I wasn't expecting.
Be
I
careful
wasn't
with your
expecting you
words.
to be in a fitness challenge with the kid. One,
To
but
run
two,
next to him. Everybody's response to the streakers we've had have been so different. It's been amazing to hear. Everyone's
It's
different.
not
Like
in the manual. Like, Dustin,
that's it.
there's no
There's
OTC course for how do you handle that? It's not in the manual.
yeah, and that's
Nope.
been the premise of our show.
Mhm.
This podcast is it's been a lot of people that it's not been
None of these
in the manual.
stories. Yeah,
I mean,
none of
this
these
is
stories
stuff
are in the
that you
manual.
don't have anything. There's no LTC for this.
No.
There's no. I mean, and I don't know that I want to write one, to be honest with you, John. But if we ever have to write a streaker, you're my guy. I'm gonna call him John and just say, all right, this is a guy.
Just make sure you're over there stretching.
Always.
You see
You start warming up with the football team every football game. You're just warming up with them.
I mean, and did the second half happen? Did it just happen, or was there a delay in the start of the second half?
No, there was no delay. That was the beauty of it. Like, you really don't want to bring a whole bunch of attention to something like that, because that's ultimately what the folks are after. And the fact that our security folks, our admin, were all over it was great. And the power of radios and having people play strategically was actually one of the many lessons that came from that event for me.
So if you say they were all over it like body paint?
Oh no!
Oh my gosh! No, you just walked right into that, John.
I did. I just beat it up for him.
Right into that.
The soft toss with Dustin. Oh man!
Man.
So the three, were they body painted too?
I think I don't remember this one as much because I think you
were running right next to him.
In my 9th year as AD, like, so many things had happened at that point. You're just like, I'll remember the highlights, but I'm not going to get into the weeds on that one. I think they had body paint on. And I remember they actually ran around to behind the bleachers to get out. And there was a gate over there that they had opened up. They had since moved their soccer field to over behind the stadium, and the gate periodically never got locked, and that's where kids would sneak in and out of the game and stuff. And on that particular night, it must have been open.
Except for the slowest one didn't really get there to
Slowest one didn't make it. That's what I'm saying. If you don't want to be the slowest one in the group.
There's a lot of life lessons in that process. Sometimes you want to be the slowest one. You want to be the AD that's the slowest one because you just like, hey, you go.
Yes.
I'll watch the Sports Center highlights. I'll get the. I don't have to watch the whole game. I can just see the little portion that I need to see. So.
Yeah, I don't need to be the first one. But you go back to that group of three, like I think I'd be asking their 40 time. Like, hey, if we're gonna do this, Dustin, what's your 40? Danielle, when you run the 40?
We're gonna have tryouts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's important. You need to know how fast the ADs who are with you.
Yeah. Oh man.
How embarrassed am I going to be on this deal? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not enough that I'm not going to be clothed, but
yeah,
I don't want to be the slowest guy at all.
No. But like I said, many valuable lessons, and making sure that the safety of the people is paramount. Big lesson as a first year AD.
Right. And the fact that here you are all these years later, still as an AD, it didn't run you out of the business. It didn't cause you to say, you know what, this isn't.
It can only go up from there.
Yeah. No, I'm grateful that it happened, and I think about that with every obstacle or any adverse situation. Like it they say experience is the greatest teacher, provided we're the best student, right? Mm-hmm. And so every opportunity to grow. Ryan Holiday wrote a book, I think it's called The Obstacle is the Way. Great read if you haven't read it. But there's so many things that pop up along the way in this profession, as you know, that if you internalize it and you take it personally, you're not going to last. And if you take it, you internalize it, and you learn a valuable lesson from it, then you're more likely to remain, and you're going to grow from it too. Which for me, that wasn't always the case when I was much younger, but now looking back, like everything, I wouldn't change anything that's happened along the way, because it's provided great opportunities for growth.
And you say it's opportunities. The exam's not one time, and it's clearly evident in yours. You had it the first year, and then 9 years later, you have it again. And so you get to apply the learning that took place over that time. And so you get to figure out, okay, here's what I need to do differently. That's where your learning moments come when that exam happens again, and it's thrown out there, and you're just like, all right, I'm good. I'm not chasing this time. I've learned that lesson. So,
I think it's important to note too that the streaker streak is alive still, alive and well.
Yes.
No females. Only males. We can't let that slip by us. We are staying strong.
Of all your experiences, how many of these have happened?
4.
How many stories of this?
Yeah.
Becky had 2.
Yeah.
Tony had 1. Tony Miller had 1. Emily Barkley had 1, but he was a chicken, really. He was fully clothed.
Fully or half? I don't. What was that? I can't remember.
And then
Emily Barkley had 1.
I think 5.
John 5.
I think 5.
Way too many.
But John's actually got 4 in this session, so I don't know that we can count it as just 1.
Yeah, there's definitely 4.
No, we never had body paint. There's always a new element.
Yeah, there's definitely 4.
There's always a new element too, right? Well, we also had it wasn't the blow up doll wasn't a streaker.
Yeah, we had a blow up doll in the student section that an AD had to go get out. It was
a anatomically correct male blow up doll.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be worse. You could be walking that across.
Could be. Yeah, that's true.
Stadium.
You just ran beside it. You were just running beside it.
Jock.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciated hearing the story. This was great. Thanks for making us laugh. And I feel like you might have others, so I feel like we should have you back on again to hear more. I feel like that needs to happen.
When you do it long enough, when
Hmm.
you have a lot of stories, that only means that you've done it for a while. And like I said, I know that one of the things that we were going to talk about was the takeaways, and that is the number one takeaway is make sure that I mean you got to know why you're doing it, making sure that you
Hmm.
provide a great event, and making sure that the kids are safe, making sure that you have enough staff, and never chase.
I mean, I think that should be number one. Never
Just
chase.
never
Never chase.
change.
I mean, if we've learned anything from John and Four Streakers is you just don't chase.
Never chase. You
And I'm
are
not sure that you can really say you chased the first one. You were just kind of escorting. I mean, I don't know that I would call it chasing.
Yeah, yeah, it
streaker
really,
expert.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the title
I
you
don't
have
know.
earned today.
I don't know. That's a title he wants to have.
That's what he's got.
But
No, no, and like remember, I was like 31 years old at the time, and whew, when you're young, you just want to do everything, and whew, I'm glad I didn't.
like you talked about your wife,
Yes.
and what was discussion like with her? I mean, was she present at the game, or was she at home, and you have to go home and deliver this story and just say you're not going to believe what happened today?
Oh yeah, she was at home because so in the fall of 2002, our baby girl would have been 2, our son would have been 4, and yeah, she was. Now when I was coaching basketball, she'd bring him to all the games. But when I was as the AD supervising football events, she would rarely come until they got older to where they could enjoy the game without needing to be in a car seat,
Stroller or whatever, yeah.
stroller or something. Yeah.
Got her own
Uh,
streakers at home she's dealing with.
yeah, no kidding. So she would hear the stories, and I bet if you asked her, she would probably remember stories that I have zero recollection of. She'd be like, "Oh, you remember that one time?" I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, ooh, I do." Yeah, or I forgot all about that one, but thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's huge too. You have somebody that goes along this path with you,
Yeah.
and for you, you said it was your support system. She's been your rock. She's been right there with you. I tell people my wife's been my assistant AD. Before I got here, I didn't have assistant ADs. It was me, and
Wow.
so she was my unpaid assistant AD for all those years.
Yeah.
And so she can tell me. Well, oftentimes it's like, Dustin, why did you say that? You probably shouldn't have said that. And I'm like, well, here was the moment. And it was pretty funny. I was sarcastic, whatever. And she's like, no. And so she's the hard reality for me sometimes. But to have that support system where whoever it may be, whether that's the spouse, whether that's somebody that you can just, whether that's the NADC, you can go to the NADC and say, hey, guys, I got a story for you. Here's something, and just an opportunity to discuss
Mm.
the situation and learn from other people. And
Mm.
part of the reason why we did this podcast is one, to laugh, because our profession sometimes we don't laugh enough. We're in the spotlight. We get the critiques. We get the suggestions. I call them armchair quarterbacks all the time that come in and just keyboard warrior it and just say, hey, you should do this, or you should have done this. And we get second guessed a lot. And we're on an island. And so sometimes it's fun to just have a moment where we can just say, so when I see John now, when I see him at the NADC, I may just take off running and see if he'll run alongside of me and just see if he's
I
still
want
got
to
that.
be there when that happens. I want to record
Man,
this.
I'm not running beside you. I will ride my bike beside you now. I will swim beside you. John does not run.
The running's over.
Running's over.
Was it this incident that made the running over?
I think it was just too many years of beating up my body as a child that has
Yeah,
caught
I'm
up
with
to
you.
me.
I'm
And
with you.
now riding my bike and swimming is a lot less stressful on my old bones.
And swimming inside.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're not
Because
swimming in
it's
Illinois.
cold. See?
No. We're inside. The water temperature is usually 80. The air temperature is 82. And we've got We've got one of the most beautiful pools in the state of Illinois, arguably high school pool for across the country. So why wouldn't I swim in that thing
Right.
every morning when my wife and I go swim? 5 a.m. We're the first ones in the pool. And our associate principal and soon to be new principal, he swims with us on Wednesdays.
I mean, I think that's another takeaway. The importance of taking care of yourself or having time for yourself, the mental health,
Yep.
physical, whatever it can be. Don't just sit and guard your desk. Don't
Just in
just sit
case,
there and
just in case you need to run next to your streaker. You got to be in tip-top
no.
performance.
We got rule one. Don't
No,
chase. That's the
never chase.
takeaway number
Never
one. Don't
chase.
Don't
chase.
chase. Don't chase.
John doesn't
Well,
run. That's
yeah.
Not running.
Well, I
But
really, really enjoyed hearing your
Here,
story, and thank you
here's
for
what I
letting
want to
us
do,
laugh
though.
with
I
you.
think you're onto something. Next season, we've talked about having multiple ADs, having multiple guests at the same time,
Hmm.
and having some discussion.
Well, we could have the streaker group.
No, well, I think there's more. I think John has gotten back to he didn't want to be identified as just, be wrapped up in, hey, this is who
It's
John
done.
is. I don't want
Sorry.
John to be labeled as just the streaker guy because I know he's got some humdingers, plural, not
No,
just
no.
one.
He's the
So I
streaker
want to have John
expert.
back on and have a discussion with John so we can have some more. But I also want to spend some time with. Are you going to be in Indianapolis in September, John? Are you there? Do you guys roll that out there for the state coordinators?
yeah, I think we're supposed to roll that out in September.
Okay, so you'll
Yep.
be present in Indy.
I was ready to be present last Monday.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're going to be wherever we need to be. And then I know Austin in December is when we'll roll that out to the folks.
Well, I say that in September because I'll be in September. I'll
Oh,
be at the
good.
state coordinators, so I want to visit with you in person there.
Yeah, for sure.
And want to talk about some more stories. I don't know of a pool that's there, so I don't know about swimming there in Indy. But I do want to visit with you then, and then of course at the NADC in Austin.
Yeah.
I want to come and just be part of the launch when you're there. I just want to be a fly in the room just to see just the reaction. Just not that I've been in it with you from the get go, but from this point forward, I've been from Monday on. I've kind of seen the work that's put in. I want to see the reaction of people in that room. So just count on me being a guest or just being an unwelcome guest in that
Let's go.
that
And
room.
Danielle, one of the three guys that were doing this curriculum that Dustin was talking about, he's at Tampa Prep. Are you
Oh,
Tampa Prep?
absolutely. Yeah, we're not. That's not far from me at all.
You know Chris Lavoie?
Yeah, Chris and I were ADs together in Kissimmee, in Osceola County. Yeah, he's a friend of
Look
mine.
at that connection right there, Dustin.
Mhm.
Isn't that
Yeah.
wild?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Chris is one of the three.
he's one of
Oh,
the three
okay.
instructors.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. We were both in Osceola County together for a long time before we both moved over to this coast. So yeah,
Here's what I will
small
say
world.
about those three. Final four intensity. When they go into that
Oh yeah, I'm
classroom,
sure.
it is a high level of get ready, seatbelt on, here we go. And so I look forward to the launch of that class. I think that's going to be very beneficial to our profession. I think it's going to be a highly sought after class. And I look forward to bringing John to Oklahoma and having him teach it in Oklahoma. That first year, only national faculty can teach that, so or the
Yep.
authors of the course. So I just get ready, John. I'm gonna bring you to Oklahoma, where it's not going to be as cold, maybe as windy, but there's a thing here called humidity that is as real as that body paint that was on that kid. It is you just wear the air. It is hot, but I
That's
look
my
forward
favorite
to.
kind of weather. Crank it up. I love Florida, 95 degrees, 100% humidity. Give me my golf bag. Let me walk on the golf
That's what
course.
it is right
I'll
now. That
be
is
in heaven.
today.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I much prefer being hot over the cold. But
Yep.
I got to embrace it now. Well,
Mhm.
Destin, thank you for the kind words. We're certainly excited and honored to have the opportunity and look forward to sharing some of what we've been working on for the last couple of years with everybody.
Well, I appreciate your willingness. You were all in, just like you are in the pool. You just said, "I'm jumping in," and here we are. And I appreciate the connection that we've made, and how I'm able to learn some things even from today, and I'll continue to text you and just say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or here's a scenario. So I look forward to meeting you in September in person, and then meeting you again in NADC where we're in Austin, spending some time. No, we won't be running, but
Right.
I look forward to having a conversation and just being able to pick your brain a little more, and then having you back on here another time to where we can tell multiple stories, because I know over your years you've got more than just this streaker stories. So look forward to that, and I appreciate you just being willing to jump on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Danielle. Thank you. It was a pleasure getting to know you and chatting with you and sharing some funny stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And it's always nice to hear how everybody reacts to different situations. And thanks for laughing with us.
Of course.
That wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsor, Wall of Fame, who excels at telling your school stories and supports us in telling ours. Check out the description of this episode for a link to receive a discount on all Wall of Fame products. We are looking forward to the next story and hope you are too.